Okay, so welcome to the Ultrarunning Sam podcast. Jack Scott.
Hello, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
That's no problem. I appreciate you coming out. It's quite short notice, actually, wasn't it? We only got in touch with you. Is it a couple of days ago, something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't long ago, 48 hours ago. I was actually out in North Wales on the Paddy Buckley round with a friend. So
right.
a tiny bit of signal I got a message off you, and then that was that.
That's it. You see now you're like this infamous ultra runner. That's you get hounded even when you're out on the Paddy Buckley.
Well, I also got a message off my wife saying we're having a dog, and then I came home and there was a dog here. So there's some crazy things going on when I'm in North Wales for sure.
So, your wife's approach to pets sounds like my wife's approach to pets. So when we first went into lockdown, I carried on working because of my job and was still commuting to work and stuff, running and biking and stuff. And I came home one day during that first couple of weeks of lockdown to 4 chickens wandering around the garden.
And, at least we weren't in the house, but yeah, that sounds pretty. She saw the opportunity, and we've had a dog. So if you see me looking down, I'm just double checking that she's not eating some running shoes or something in the kitchen.
Yeah, I had a husky from a puppy, and she literally went any leather that she could get her teeth into. That was it. Shoes, handbags, everything.
Bless her.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So most people that listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, will probably be aware of you. But for ones that aren't aware of you, what's your sort of background coming into running then? How did you get the running bug, and how it's led to where you are now, basically?
Yeah. So I'm 28 now, and I've been running this will be my 6th year. Started in June 5 years ago, and this will be my 6th year. How did I find it? How did it come to me? I suppose I was sort of in my early 20s and not really getting anywhere or doing anything. I played sport and football at a relatively good level, certainly enjoyed working hard, and I was a leader. I was the captain of any team that I played in, which was nice. And then I don't know, I suppose running presented itself to me. Some different things were going on in my life then, and there was a little bit of a gap. I suppose running showed itself, and I sort of ran away with it once I knew I was all right at it. It's not all been plain sailing. There's been injuries and ups and downs and stuff, but the last 3 years have been really consistent, and just found a passion for it, and start on the roads, transition to the trails, then can you run up a mountain, and then how many times can you run up a mountain, then X, Y, and Z. So yeah, it's been an amazing transformation, amazing part of my life, which I hope will continue for as long as I can move, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the hope for all of us, isn't it? So where are you based then, and where's your local? Where do you go locally?
So I'm in mid Staffordshire, a little town called Stone, where my highest trig point is.
No, Stone.
Yeah, 160 meters in the local woods. So if I can train and I'm traveling, it's normally to the Roaches. I'm actually meeting Kim, who you had on 3 or 4 days ago. We're going for a run together on the 2nd of January there with full spine kit, so that should be fun. So yeah, the Roaches is the closest, and then it's 2 hours to Snowdonia. But yeah, just nice and local on the trails. There's nothing too crazy around here.
Yeah, I'm based in Etwall, which is just outside of Derby. So I know Stone. My the lad I still work with, he used to live in Stone, just on those big blocks of flats. So as you drop down that road with all the trees either side through that valley, drop down into Stone, and there's like a pub and stuff around there, and a factory and stuff. So yeah, I know Stone. So do you get off? Obviously, you're not that far away from the Peak District either. So do you get crossed into the peaks to train as well?
Yeah, like I said, the Roaches is the first stop. So park below the reservoir, out just outside Leek, and then up onto the ridge, and then into the peaks. Then, I mean, I've said before on Instagram, it seemed interesting that from the Roaches. Have you ever been on the Roaches? Or
yeah.
It's like a block wall all the way along, like some out of Game of Thrones. And then I was thinking, from there, the land stays high all the way north, up and over the high peak, up into the Pennines. So yeah, it's like the start of don't know, the start of the
So you're
mini
that's
wilderness that we can call the Peak District, the Pennines, and then even into the Southern Uplands. So yeah, it's the first high point really.
That's it. Yeah. So for me, Ashbourne is like the closest place to get into officially into the Peak District. But yeah, you're on that you're on that westerly border, aren't you? As you look at the map to get in there. So you've had no shortage of decent trail running then in you. It's not like you've been trapped.
No, I've not been trapped. I mean, I do have to go looking for it. I mean, it's still 45 minutes north each way, so I have to factor that in. And when I go up there, I do make the most of it. I don't go up there for a 10K. And a lot of my training is actually on a hill past that, which is on the edge of Macclesfield Forest, called Shetland Slough Fell. It's, I mean, apart from the lakes and obviously Snowdonia, I mean, it's probably the toughest hill to climb direct. And I've literally found it, and I've had to stick with it. So I've been up there multiple. I wish I had £1 for every time I've been up. It's my favourite hill as well, if I can say that.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, not in the moment though, obviously. Yeah,
no,
brilliant. So I don't think we can talk about your sort of origin story without talking about, if you don't mind, still talking about your issues that you had with gambling, because that's it's a big transition that you made from that. Just tell us sort of how you found yourself in that situation and how you got out of it, basically.
Yeah, I found myself in it. So a gambling addiction was rife in my life for, I think I've said 6 years, so I'll stick with 6 years. From 18 to 24. I found running when I was 23 or 22. So the two did cross paths. I suppose I was exposed, and I was again looking for an identity when I was 18, 19, 20, and I started gambling in local shops, which I managed to eradicate, and then the world of the phone sort of evolved. And when you go online and stuff, it's just a completely different ballgame, and I completely lost control for a long time and really struggled. It was the hardest thing. Or if I have to go through something like that again, ever, I really don't want to do it. And I do remind myself of that. You know, I've done some really long stuff, and I always say you've been through worse. Nothing can compare what you had to overcome, even though it took years to do. And by the end, when I did part my ways with it, because I do talk about it as a form. I think it's like a skin you go into, or I think that's what addiction is. And when I left that form, it was like a parting of ways between, like, sounds ridiculous, but like two different people, myself then and myself now. And yeah, I know we're going to talk about the spine later on, but I work with a sort of local psychologist now who doubles up as a physio. He's ex-military, and we work really well. And we both said that the ability to look at something and be like, you've been through worse. And I was suffering and I was doing it on my own, but I was making the decision. So I am hard on myself that I was, doing that. So if I've done that to myself, then I can do the spine race to myself, basically. Yeah, turn a negative into a positive.
Yeah.
How can you look back and learn? And I learned the hard way, and it was difficult. And luckily, I've got an amazing family, an amazing wife now, girlfriend at the time, and with a bit of luck, I managed to pull myself out of it. And running, I think when I started doing long running, I was punishing myself because I was still gambling. I was running 100-mile races, doing well, and it was more of like a punishment. And then as soon as you accept who you are and you understand, you can't hide away from a certain aspect of your life, and you just have to take the good and the bad in both hands. That's when I managed to let it go. And running's taken over, but I also think that my running and my lifestyle's evolved that much now that if something happened with work or with family or with an injury and running was not there for 6 months, a year, I now think that I understand life enough where it's not like I've got to have something, I've got to go back to gambling, or I've got to do CrossFit like mad because I need something in my life. Like now, I just think I understand life more, and gambling helped me with that, but it was a hell of a bumpy road for a long time, for sure.
Yeah, it's probably, I suppose, the wisdom that getting a bit older.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't regret, like anything, whether it's a certain amount of money I lost or a certain mind frame I was in, because I've managed to come out of it, obviously, the other side well, and you know, I'm healthy, and that's the main thing. But it is a phase of my life that I can look back on now and smile, because yeah, I learned early in my life the hard way, and I put myself through some bad stuff. But now, yeah, things are stable and good, and everything's in the right direction now.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of, because you were still in the throes of that addiction, do you think that was the suffering of ultra running was the thing that drew you in because of how you felt about your addiction? Like you were saying that you were almost punishing yourself for what you were doing. Do you think that was like a foregone conclusion, that as soon as you started running, was it the addiction side of things made you go towards wanting to do more and more and more of that, or was it something just a natural way that you were drawn into it because of how you felt towards yourself?
I didn't notice at the time, and everything that I look back on now is like, when I was in the middle of it, I had no idea what was happening. I knew I had a gambling addiction, but the running and the way I was living my life and trying to pull myself out of the hole I was in, you know, I've reviewed it since, and now I'm looking back in a different light. I think it was the ability to go and run for 24 hours and not gamble. I mean, I know that might sound completely ridiculous, but I think that had something to do with it. And I also wanted people to think that I was successful and normal, and you know, look at him, he's only been running for 6 months and he can run 100 miles and all that. It's not sustainable, it's ridiculous. But I was trying to fill a void in my life. And there was spells where I wouldn't gamble for a month, and then somehow it would show itself. And it wasn't linked to, you know, like, I started off as 100%, I was a gambler, and then running came in and I was 95% a gambler, 5%, and then slowly but surely things rolled in the right direction and managed to eradicate it. So there was definitely a form of punishment in there, but I had no idea at the time. I was just searching for an identity and searching for a level of success, I suppose.
I suppose if you have an addictive personality and you recognize that you've got an addictive personality, then I suppose, you know, ultra running is kind of like the perfect thing to replace that with. You're replacing a positive thing, aren't you, with a negative thing?
With a characteristic. It's a characteristic that I'll always have. But like I said, I do, and there is the cliche, oh, you know, he was addicted in this field and now he's addicted in this field. But I really do think that the way my life's panning out and the way I'm progressing and the way I look at running now is, again, an entity I can enter and leave. It's not as simple as he's flipped it. He's now addicted to running. I think that doesn't show any respect to me and any respect to the sport. So it's a lifestyle, and gambling is a lifestyle, but it's not sustainable. The lifestyle I think I've got now when I'm training and the way I live my life, I think that is sustainable. Even if I had 3 months off with an Achilles injury or a toe injury or something, it's not like I'm still a runner. You know, I'm not a gambler anymore. I'm a runner, and I think that's important. But it's, yeah, you know, I haven't forced things, you know. Maybe at the start I was forcing things when I was trying to get my percentages better, when I was trying to get 75-25, 60-40. But now, like I said, it was a part in the ways, and yeah, it came at just the right time.
I suppose to us in the world of ultra running 100-mile races and 50-mile races and doing really long races is normal, isn't it? But to your average Joe on the street, it probably doesn't seem normal. But in the context of ultra running, it's not. It's extreme, but it's not so extreme that it's just not unheard of, because it's just, you know, these are the kind of races that we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think? Do you think your example of overcoming this can help? You know, if you looked into this, could help other people struggling with addiction? Do you think, is there any sort of focus that you can put yourself into to help others? Have anyone reached out to you and said, I'm struggling the same as you did? Anything like that?
Yeah, there has been people like that, and it's not one shoe fits all. My God, there's so many different aspects and there's so many different things that are going on in life to why people do it. And it's a strange addiction because you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can rarely touch it. It's not like having a bottle in your hand or having drugs in your hand or having I don't know, like an eating addiction, having food in your hand. It's not. It's all in your brain, and it's dark and it's a blurry place. And yeah, I mean, if I've messaged people individually and give them advice, and I went full circle with mine, and I had to, because if I hadn't, it, you know, I suffered longer than I should have done, but I suffered the right way. I had to do it the way I did it to pull myself out. And if I was giving advice to anyone listening or watching this, it'd be try and simplify your life, surround yourself with people you can trust. And if you think you've got a passion for reading, or a passion for, I don't know, sewing, or a passion for football, or just think outside the box. And how can you replace your percentages? So you're a 5% a reader, you read one book a month. Well, are you interested in other books? Have you looked outside the box? Try and do things naturally, and try and do things your own way, and surround yourself with people you can trust. And eventually, I'm sure you'll break through that ceiling, and the blurriness will gone, because that's what it was for me. It was a total blur, and yeah, it was a really difficult time. But trust yourself, trust your instinct, and there's definitely a way out. But sometimes you have to do it the hard way. And if there's help out there as well. I registered with GamStop, which is an online tool which completely eradicates the fact you can add your bank details or add your address to where you live, and you physically cannot gamble. It's like I've referred to it as cutting the head off the snake. That is a huge tool, and one tiny little click of a button could change your life. It could the blurriness could be gone in one go. You never know. So yeah, trust your instincts, surround yourself with people you can trust, and remember there is a way out, and the blurriness will leave.
So do you feel like that experience of overcoming that, like you said earlier, that has put you in a different mindset to a lot of ultra runners, that you've overcome that, and like you say, in a race you can be thinking, I've gotten over worse things than this? Do you think that puts you psychologically an advantage to a lot of ultra runners that are in races that you might be in at the time?
I'd say so. And the age of which I've had to beat what I've beaten, or replenish what I'd lost, it was like make or break. I was trying to get a house, I was trying to get married, I was trying to start a family, I was trying to find my feet in the world, and I was going through something massive in the background. But now I have, and I'm like to think I'm successful and moving in the right direction. I've got years and years of hopeful success, whether that's winning certain things or finishing certain things, or just being happy and being a family man and being content every single day. So, I went through it early, and I do think it's given me a maturity and a mental strength that maybe another 27, 28-year-old might not have. But I'm not naive to think that, the book is closed, and 5 years down the line, you never know. Like, I'm just enjoying the fact that I can have adventures, I'm fit, I'm healthy, my family are okay. And I've as much energy as I've pumped into gambling, and I'll pump into running. But I also pump into recovery, hydration, nutrition. It's not just running around in circles like a headless chicken.
Yeah, there is more to it than that. So speaking of running around in circles, then, so some of the races and stuff that you've done, how did you come up with the idea to do the lakes, meres, and waters in the Lake District? That
was really interesting. So lockdown, I was searching for a purpose, for an event, events weren't happening, for a route. And it caught my eye, and I sent it to my friend Hugh, who I was with recently in Wales, and it never materialized. But the route, I like the quirkiness. I like the fact that it's not overdone, it's not oversold, it's different, and it felt like an old journey that Joss did years ago, and I just wanted to be part of it. And I had a gap in training, and I wanted a winter adventure, knowing that the year after I'd be doing the Spine. And I can look back with fond memories, and it was an amazing weekend. And yeah, that was a really, really interesting, quirky route, definitely.
So you managed to get up into the lakes regularly then for that? Did you go and recce it and everything?
Yeah, so I was pushed into a corner with work at that time. I work in construction, and we picked up a big job down south, doing long hours, heavy work. So I sort of was pushed in the corner. I was like, well, I'm going to push back with the same force. So I'm going to be in the gym 5 a.m. I'm good at 4 a.m. I'm going to be training in the night as well because I was restricted. And then at the weekends, there was many times I'd worked away for 5 days, come home, drop my washing off, and it would be, you know, straight up to the Lake District for two or 3 nights, and then straight back down again. Not seeing my wife. She's a police officer and she's doing crazy hours. So yeah, I was up there and I got a really, really good feeling for the route. And it was different and new because no one had really brought it back since Josh had done it years ago. And there'd only been 2 winter attempts and I had a gap in training. I thought, yeah, the shoe fits. So let's have a go. And it was awesome.
Yeah. It's nice to find something that hasn't been done to death, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't doing it to get a record time, but I knew that if I could stay injury free and be efficient, that I could get the time. I think I knocked 5 hours off it, but it was the feeling I was after. The feeling of being in control, showing composure in really difficult conditions, which I knew would be relevant for the spine. So yeah, it was amazing. And I took my father-in-law up there. It was his first look at sort of crewing and supporting. And yeah, we've got some really good memories. It's an amazing weekend.
Yeah, brilliant. It sounds awesome. But would you ever, you know, have you got plans to do Bob Graham like everybody does?
No, to be honest, I haven't. I've done Snowdonia is where my heart lies with mountain running. Obviously, I associate with Innovate, and I know it's their stronghold, the Lake District, and I've done some amazing runs around there. But logistically and Snowdonia is where I am and where I want to be. So Bob Graham hasn't jumped into my thought pattern, to be honest.
Because you did great at UTS, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, UTS was awesome. 50k. I've done the 100k the year before, I think. Managed third, got beaten up pretty bad, but it was a good race. And then the 50k was a priority this year, which I managed to peak in that race, which was awesome. And that event is growing into something special. I think they got it right last year, and hopefully they'll get it right this coming year. And yeah, it's a really well, running in the Slate Mines, running in Snowdonia, running up there for me is amazing. So if I can do it in an event and get, you know, have my wife there to watch me finish and have, you know, a nice environment, that's perfect for me.
Yeah. So it's spectacular, isn't it, around there? The scenery is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. It's different and it's bold and it's hard. It's harder than the lakes. I've not really done much in the Highlands, but I know a lot of people who have. Yeah, it's a different, especially the Paddy Buckley round. It's probably what drew me into the mountains in the first place. I used to go Snowdonia. I remember my first ever hill rep up that. And yeah, the Paddy Buckley is something that is extremely important to me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe having a long run on that next winter as well.
So as far as the UTS 50k, then how did you know when you were going into it? Did you sort of focused on were you planning on going for the win, or is it something that just?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I put massive pressure on myself to perform, and every single local race I'd entered, trail and fell race local, I'd won. I was in a really good spell with energy and enthusiasm, and just, you know, we use it as an experience with me and my psychologist. Right, can you go to an event and run? I mean, in a 4-mile fell race, it's basically I treated it like that. Start fast, don't fade, win the race. And I know that might sound ridiculous, but I approached it like it was a 4-mile fell race, and it worked, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was amazing. And I also said that I didn't want to have to race the last downhill down to Llanberis, down the Llanberis path. I got to the top and I knew I was in good nick, and I eased off and enjoyed it. I remember even turning in 1 mile from the finish. I saw a marshal, maybe 1k, and I just stopped for like 10 or 15 seconds, looked behind me, and I was like, oh, I've got it today. Because them days, you know, I've said before, enjoy the training, because race day can be upside down, inside out, and you haven't got a chance, you haven't got a clue. You know, that happened to me at UTMB this year. So it was really nice to just take a minute and go into a race, show control, show composure, and show fitness. I mean, I've got characteristics which I think will help me succeed in running, you know, and I know I'm really conscious about how things feel, not necessarily the pace. Things come with the way it feels, and UTS was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to be in such a comfortable position that you can take those 10 to 15 seconds and just appreciate where you are. Because sometimes if you're doing well in a race,
Yeah.
you know, I've won a few local races, nothing major, but just that period where you know you're winning and you know you've got it in the bag, that's like precious. It's like gold, isn't it? And that feeling that you've got, but then the race is over and that feeling's gone again. And that's obviously why you want to race again, because you want to get that feeling back, don't you?
Again, the satisfaction is the fact that you've managed to execute a plan. You've come down off the mountain safe, which is also another very important thought pattern. And it's worked, because a lot of the time it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like the A team said. Who was it in the A team? Love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, Hannibal. Yeah,
Hannibal. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, brilliant. So obviously we've got to talk about the spine race then. So
spine race.
You were mentioned in the same breath as by Kim as Damien Hall and Dougie, and we talked about his thoughts on what was gonna happen in a couple of weeks' time. So what's your you've already spoken about your prep as far as doing long winter rounds and everything. How do you feel like your prep has gone for it this year?
Well, I think it's gone extremely well, and I attempted it 3 years ago with my friend Hugh again, who I was running with recently, and I DNF'd at about 100k, and I had to come away from that a bit with the tail between my legs. I was still learning, and I was 6 weeks into pulling myself away from gambling, which again I didn't realize at the time, but I was emotionally exhausted, and as soon as times got hard, I wasn't willing to go there. No, I didn't even have a choice. And since then, I've come away. I've done hard things in training. It's important to fear things and to do variety and think outside the box. For example, over Christmas, I was doing a 16-minute 5K. And then 2 days later, I've done 40 miles on the Paddy Buckley winter round with my friend. It's like variety, in and out, in and out. Can you keep things exciting? And I've done that now for the 3 years since I last went up to the Pennines, and I feel like I've learned everything. That isn't true, but that's how it feels in my head, and I'm excited to race and swing the bat and see what happens. It really is an honour to be mentioned alongside Kim and Damien, especially. They're two of the people who have, without them knowing, have sort of helped me maybe when I was gambling, because I saw these two strong mountain runners who could go out for 48 hours and still be in work on Monday morning, So it's amazing to be mentioned in the same breath as those guys, and hopefully, we can all run together and we'll see what happens. I'm excited to try and perform, but I'm just looking through my own eyes. I'm not too sure what other people want to do. What are you doing, Dougie?
I think that's the thing with the spine, I suppose, is that anything can happen.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's a foot race. It's not a run. It's a foot race. It's an expedition, and I've worked this out with my psychologist, and we've identified a couple of things. There's hundreds of micro decisions which are vital, and then there's 20 which are race defining. Whether you're finishing, whether you're podiuming, whether you're DNFing, and those, if you can get 50% of the hundreds right, and if you can get 80% of the 20 questions right, you've done enough. And you've got to be tough enough as well, and you've got to ask you, the question will come, I don't know how many times, the equation will change, and if you can show composure, show control, and answer the questions when you're asked, I think you can be successful. And I've been there before with sleep. I've done some long stuff, and it's my strength, but I've got to do 150 miles before you get into my strength. So what's going to happen in those 150 miles, I don't know. But hopefully my strengths are tailored towards this race, and I can move well and see if anyone else can move well as well.
Yeah. Just touching on the psychology of it all then, is this something that you actively do for every single race? Then you plan out your strategy with this guy that you go and see.
Yeah, I mean, I went to him after I ran across Scotland, the Southern Upland Way, and he helped me with recovery, doing like hands-on stuff because he's a physio as well. And his name's Steve Halls, lives in my local town, ex-military man, and he's without even knowing, without the way we communicate is incredible, and he is absolutely key to the way I look at things, the way I assess things, and the lifestyle I've managed to create. And we do, but it's not like, oh, we're going to sit down and jot this down and it's all intense. But we talked, and we've been talking for months and months, and just I'm taking everything in. He says, "Be a sponge," and I'm a big sponge now. And yeah, he's been crucial. So I've made race decisions already. I've done them weeks ago. But a lot of sometimes that can get on top of you and it can overwhelm you. But I've learned from last time, and I've just processed things differently. So yeah, there's a race plan there, but it won't show itself until it has to.
What would you say is the most important thing that, if you were sort of going to advise somebody else on approaching a race with psychology, what would you, is there anything that you like, bullet points that you would sort of give out to somebody that you feel are like essential for you that you've learned at the time?
Be good at dealing with time. Don't look at time as a restriction. Look at time as a blessing and as an opportunity. You're going to be out for what, 100 hours, 120, 130, depending on where you're in the pack. That's 100 hours for things to go well, not for things to be horrible when your trench foot's that bad, you've got your shin splints. Let's look at it through, right, we've got 100 hours to perform, or 100 hours to be ourselves. We haven't got 100 hours to suffer. You know what's going to happen. You know how long you're going to be out. But can you deal with the time? Like that's the main thing. Whether you're in the race or whether you're in some sort of weird equation with certain people in the middle, at the front, or at the back, if you can deal with time, stay composed, show control, I think you'll be successful. And also, you need a hell of a lot of luck. You can't prepare yourself for what's going to go on up there. There's thousands and thousands of different things that could happen, and as long as you've got the characteristics to be tough when the questions are asked and keep a clear mind, I think, and also trust the training. Like, you can't look back now. I've only got probably 2 runs to do now, and then I'll enter a block of 8 intense gym sessions focusing on different things, because I know like the feeling I've had. So I did one 47-mile run with full kit, and I had to, like, I was running with a friend who was suffering a bit, but I didn't want to stop. I had an amazing feeling. We were moving well, and that feeling's important. It wasn't about how fast we'd been. It was the feeling of being on your feet, being composed. You've looked after yourself. You've done 47 miles on the Pennine Way, and you're feeling amazing. And again, this week just gone, when I was up on the mountains with my friend in some really difficult conditions, the feeling of being competent, showing your craft and looking after yourself, it's never been better for me. And I'm literally 4 seconds off a 5K PB as well. The variety's been amazing. I feel fitter than I ever have, mentally and physically. So it's going to be interesting when the questions are asked.
Yeah, that's good, because I think that's what Kim was saying when I spoke to him. He was talking about keeping things, keeping variety in his training, and he was saying about not neglecting it's like speed work and things like that going into, even though you're focusing on such a big long race that is, say, is a foot race. It's not on, it's not an all out, it's not like a 50K or a 50 miler even. Do you feel like you've sacrificed anything in any way, or do you feel like completely rounded as an athlete going into this?
Since lockdown, I've developed in my own mind the ability to train at race intensity. So I will train on the road or on the hill to the point where I'm not restricted at all. The only way I can do more is if I'm getting chased, or if I'm 4 seconds behind third place, second place, I don't know. And that is something that's developed over time that I've got and I've stuck with. So variety in my training, it might seem scary. And I do a bit of coaching, and I preach to people that, a 10K, the fast 10K is one of the hardest zones of fitness you'll ever spend time in. And you might not think it's relevant to your 40, 50-mile race, but if you look back and you've done your taper and you've done hard things and you've gone to mental places, even if it's only for 45 minutes or for 50 minutes or 33 minutes, whatever, you've trained outside the box and you've looked at things differently. And not a lot of people do that. And it's something I preach. And yeah, I'll accept that. So I did 3 peaks last year, and I finished 10th. It was a qualifier for GB, and I was beaten by 9 better fell runners than me. But I'd just done, the long winter run, 100 miles or whatever, and I'd done long stuff that they hadn't done. So I understand that I'm not going to be able to be an elite runner over 7-mile fell race or a 20-mile fell race. I like to think I'm good enough and I'm competitive. And if I have a good day, maybe things will work. But if you think training for something like the spine is just 50-mile days, full kit, it really isn't. It's not sustainable and you'll get injured. So I've managed to tweak things. And also I enjoy, like on Christmas Day, it might sound ridiculous, but my wife was working, so I had time. I was doing 1,000-meter sprints to the point of like really hard, and I enjoy it. I enjoy all elements of this sport, whether it's 1,000 meters or 268 miles on the Pennine Way. I just love movement, and movement is the base of everything.
Yeah, amazing.
Blood flow, fast twitch, it all helps with repairing. If you've done a 40 miler 7 days, 5 days before, and then you go into a hard session, the blood's flowing, the muscles are working, you're still recovering from the 40 miler, but that intense blood flow and that intense heart rate, that could speed things up. And on the other hand, it can cause issues, but you need to learn your own body, and I've learned that. And another thing, I don't get obsessed with stats or anything like that. It's not like you've got to do 100-mile weeks, you've got to do 20,000 foot. There's a time and a place for that. But if you think you can maintain that as a part-time athlete, you will run into trouble. So clean rest is best, and the things away from running are more important. The sleep, the hydration, the mindset, and you should never resent training. Things have got to be exciting. So if you miss a session, okay, but if you've got time 2 days later and you're like, oh, I've got a 2-hour time gap that I wasn't expecting, right, let's do what we should have done, and let's do it without pressure on of being, having to go home and cook for the kids or take the dog out. If you approach training like, if we're training for 2:10 marathon, it's got to be done on that day. It's got to be done on that day at that time, no matter what. But you need to be versatile, and you need to look at things differently if you want to run on the trails and the mountains, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. So as far as coaching, then are you coached by someone?
No, I've been self-coached since day dot, running wise.
Would you consider?
I expanded. I was helping family and friends through lockdown, and then I expanded to open up to help other people who might want to transition from trails to mountains or from marathons to ultra marathons. Last December, it's been difficult. I've changed my hours at my full-time job now to allow more time to coach, and my imagination and the way I look at my own training is totally developed. And again, like it's had such a positive impact on me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed communicating with people, helping people. And I take energy from my clients. They think I give them energy, but I take energy from them. Every single one is different, and every single one has a different story to tell, and those stories are valuable.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, I did a bit of coaching as well, and you kind of even though if it's not a race that you would want to do yourself or you pick for yourself, you almost feel like you're experiencing that race with them and the training for that race, because you're having to put yourself literally in their shoes to think how you would approach doing that race yourself. So I think, with having clients that are doing different distances, different terrain and stuff, it makes you draw on that yourself, don't you? And you like you say, you draw from that, and it's more experience for you, even though you wouldn't necessarily be doing that, that certain race in a certain place, because it doesn't normally appeal to you, but you get that experience through them, and you can see how it affects them, can't you?
Yeah, and another thing is, I understand how important this sport is and how this sport can change lives. it's changed my life. And anyone who trusts me or who puts that trust in my hands to look after something that is so important, that's an incredible thing, because a lot of people live one-dimensionally, and running or exercise is the only thing that is theirs. And the people who I look after and I help and I mentor and give advice to, it's an honor, to be honest, because I literally understand more than anyone how like movement is vital. So it's awesome. It's amazing.
Mm. Yeah, it's a brilliant way to look at it. Just sort of switching directions then. Obviously, you sat there in your Innovate jacket, spreading the love. How did you get involved with Innovate? Hello, doggy. If you're listening, you can't see the dog now.
No, there's a dog on the screen. How did I get involved? So I'd ran the Southern Upland Way. I managed to take 13 minutes off Mike Hartley's long-standing record time. I come off the back of that, and I think Innovate were looking to expand, maybe looking for a younger runner who's got good core values, who likes variety. Damien, I was speaking to Damien at the time about a couple of things, and yeah, we got the ball rolling, and then I just spoke to them. I was training the Lake District early spring, summer for the GB 100k trials, and I went for a coffee with a couple of members of the team, and we touched base about what running is, what it means to me, and it's not all about, you know, new socks, shiny shoes, and whatever nice packs. There's more to that, and the company really have been amazing with the way they've taken on like my story, I suppose. And yeah, I can't thank them enough for just giving me the platform to talk to hundreds of thousands of people, when a lot of brands might stay away from that because it's a sport, but it's a bit of an ugly side. And I really appreciate the way they've embraced it and managed to tell more stories. And if you go to the Lake District, and they're expanding now into different areas of Britain, but there's such a core brand with such a important history, which that'll never change. So yeah, I know they want to, improve their ultrarunning team and get things rolling in a few different projects. So it's amazing to be a part of that, and I appreciate all their support and over the last 18 months and moving forward into next year.
Yeah, I know, because I looked at the Innovate website when I was doing a bit of research on you, and obviously that's like when they talk about your bio, it is literally like a Q&A about what we've spoken about you overcoming gambling with that addiction and everything. And you're right that I think that some sports would absolutely want to steer people away from that side of your background, but I think it's so relevant, isn't it, to ultra running, the fact that you've got over something like that. I think it just absolutely sort of is completely in line with people's values of, because that's what running is. It's, for a lot of people, it's escapism, isn't it? From, you've got your mundane 9-to-5 job, but that you're going for a run that night or that morning, and that's your escape, and it makes everything else all right, isn't it? So having a story like yours, where you've overcome a horrendous addiction and you've got through it, and you've got through it with the help of running, that's what more of an advert could they possibly need for running?
Yeah. And the ball was rolling before they knew the severity of what I was going through. I'd mentioned things, what I'd been through. And what you just said there about having the excitement if you sit in your office typing and at 6 o'clock you're going to be doing hill reps, or that imagination of, I've got the weekend free, what can I do, where can I go? Anyone who's listening to this or watching this who's just starting out or has a New Year resolution to be a runner, trail runner, road runner, it doesn't matter. That imagination and that thought pattern to think about where you want to be, whether it be crazy tough, like running up snow for the first time, is absolute magic, and you should enjoy it, because you can get lost in like breaking records and running around like a headless chicken, and dealing with brands and dealing with not the ugly side, but the other side of the coin. But that pure imagination, that pure thrill that you get, when you start running or whether you've got, I was getting it when I was doing some sessions in Snowdonia and it was nice, but don't lose that. Keep hold of that and embrace that, because that is what the sport's about. Not about winning, losing, or finishing in the middle. It's that imagination that really changes lives, I found.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
So obviously today we're recording on the 31st of December. It's New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, some people, some people really buy into New Year's resolutions. I'm not one that believes in New Year's resolutions. But for you, will anything change tomorrow? Have you got anything that you're thinking that you want to change for next year?
It's a really good question. Well, I'm trying to bridge the gap to the elite runners, and it's difficult because you can't control all the variables when a pro athlete can. I think there's a little bit more I can do in that sense. A couple of little avenues I can go down, which I want to explore. But in a sport that asks so much, you've got to be careful how much it owes you when you're still a family man, you're still working, construction and doing the coaching, and being a husband. But this year if you'd have said what's happened this year to me in last January, my only bad day was at UTMB on the biggest stage again. But all the fell race wins, all the way it's felt and the way training's felt, and no injuries, and still, I got married in March and juggling loads of balls. It's been the most amazing year, and I've taken energy and positivity from everything. So not too much has got to change. There might be a few tweaks, and I've just got to make sure that when the questions are asked in 16 days time, I'm healthy and I'm in a position to answer them. But general health is so important. You think you're following a training plan and you can just run yourself ragged and lose sight of what's really important. So these next 16 days are all about hydration, diet, heart rate variability in the gym, really hard stuff, but not loading the body with repetitiveness. And then when the questions are asked, like I said, on the spine, there's no grey area that I haven't done. Set yourself up to succeed, and then grit your teeth and stay awake.
Literally.
It's been a while since I've had to deal with the sleep bugs, so it's going to be interesting. I'm normally good, but we'll see.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Is it what else have you got planned for next year? Have you got anything that's set in stone race wise then, other than the spine?
Yeah, again, I'm going to reassess obviously after the spine. I know Kim said something similar, and you'd be stupid to start planning things in February, March, and April. I'll reassess, regroup, and re-energize with my family and my physio, and my psychologist Steve, and another physio I work with local called Tom Hughes, who at Shape Your Future in Hildeston. He's been amazing. So it's interesting because Steve is old school and he's different, and he's a dying breed. And Tom is the complete flip side. He's got the latest technology. He's got amazing products, and he's learnt my body incredibly well. So we work really well. So I'll be spending lots of time with them, plotting and planning, recovering properly. I'll be doing UTS 100K in May. I'll be doing the OCC in the UTMB at the end of August, because I need more alpine experience and I need to understand. I train there well, UTMB in the mountains, but in a race scenario where you can't control the variables, I wasn't ready. I suffered well. I was ill, and I was satisfied with how I suffered. That sounds strange, but next year's still up in the air at the minute, and I'd love a winter adventure on the Paddy Buckley round next December after being through what we've just been through the last few days. I mean, my friend managed to get round in sub 24, and there's a cliche. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but we were 3 miles from the finish on the last summit, climbing up to Hebog, and we nearly had to stop. Like, you see stories of, he's 3 miles from the finish. So, what do you mean he couldn't finish? Or it was unbelievably difficult up there. It was wild, dangerous, amazing training, but have you ever been in a race experience where you've been that close to the end, where you think you can't do it and people wouldn't understand?
I think I was just
weather-wise or fatigue.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of something that came to mind, but the only thing that came to mind was actually when just me and a mate of mine, Andy, were doing trying to do the Dark Peak 15 trigs, and it was and it was that we picked the worst day possible because it was midsummer, and it was the other extreme of like 30+ degrees, and being out all day and drinking filtered water out of all the streams that were still actually running.
The peat bogs,
yeah, drinking brown water all
Oh
day.
yeah, drinking cola.
Never quite takes the taste away, does it? It might be clean, but it doesn't quite take that taste away. And we were, and I think we got to, I'm trying to remember, we get to 12, something like that, and Andy just was just finished with like heat stroke. It was just it was gutting because it's a long day. We still ended up running 50 odd miles, whatever it was, in that heat. But you sometimes you have to know when to call it a day, and even though I didn't really want to, for his safety, we called it a day.
Yeah.
I'm sure Andy will appreciate me bringing this up again for him.
Oh, you learn more in the time.
Yeah, well, no, I haven't had anything where I've been in a race. I'm just trying to think. I've been in races and been doing well and thought, can I actually hold on to this pace, and somehow managed to hold on to it.
Find a way. That's what we were muttering the other night. I mean, it was 2 a.m. Like I said, we had a 500-meter climb and a 2-mile descent through some really difficult terrain. But honestly, it just opened your eyes sometimes. And another note I'd say to anyone who's looking at transitioning from the road to the trails and then to the mountains or something, when you come down off that mountain safe, you've got to appreciate that, because you never know what's around the corner. And I always say, especially running at speed, like some of the stuff on UTS, an exposed route opposite Crib Goch, doing that at speed, I've done it 30 times, not under race scenario, and I was doing it at speed, and it's dangerous. Like there's that many times you're like, oh, that was close, but something that keeps you up that you can't see. So especially, and again, fell running, so is extremely dangerous. But if and when I finish the spine this time, my first thing will be thank God I'm safe, thank God it's done, and hopefully everyone in front or behind me is the same.
Yeah, there's always consequences in trail running. That's the thing, isn't it? It's different to doing a 50k on a road or a flat trail. Once you get into these areas, is there any bits of the spine that you're not dreading but not particularly looking forward to as far as terrain goes? Or people complain about, I interviewed Ian Keith and he was just saying there's a section that he kind of dreads, which is all pretty flat, and that's the bit that he always dreads every year.
That might be Middleton to Dufton along the river, maybe. Well, to be honest, the trail is actually in the river. Like there's a cliff that's collapsed, and the stones you have to go over depending on the water. It's
I've ran along that. I was at Middleton last year on that checkpoint, and we went and ran along the river, and it's kind of, you look at it and you think, oh yeah, but it seems like it's never ending. It's just you're running by the river.
And then you climb. You got the long, slow climb up to High Cup Neck and down. I'm not too sure. I mean, I've managed to bag some really good runs on it and gain some experience on it. I mean, I wouldn't like to be on Crossfell in 80-mile-an-hour winds and -10. I mean, that's not ideal. But again, another spin on that is I've got to be the best in the worst scenarios. It's the same for everybody. And a thing that me and Steve have worked on is be the best at the hardest times. That's when it matters. That's when people don't get out of bed, or that's when people, look the other way. If you can be the best, then it's all right being best on a lovely sunny day, 20 degrees, running around like a lunatic. But can you be the best when the chips are down? Like that's when it matters. And I've got the mindset where I've done that. I've done hard things, and hopefully I can slot into that mindset in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it. So I'll be seeing you at a number of places along the route, because I'm with the media team this year. So I'll be chasing you with cameras and video cameras and things all over the place. So
yeah,
I'm definitely going to catch up with you and probably try and get some more interviews out of you when hopefully you won't be at your lowest points when I speak to you.
I once saw Simon Cowell in a hallucination on the offer diet path. It was very strange. Yeah, it was.
Wow,
that was a bizarre one. We'll see what happens. See what happens in a few weeks.
Yeah, did he have his buzzer with the X on?
No, he just told me he brought Coca-Cola and he wanted me to work for him. Bizarre. I mean, I'd had 12 hours sleep, 12 minutes sleep in 42 hours. So yeah, there wasn't much room for error there. I've just been across the viaduct at Chirk. I don't know if you know it. There's a famous viaduct, the canal, and you have to go over. You come off the canal and you turn right, and it's probably 300 meters long. You've got a meter footpath, and you've got the canal. Obviously just suspended. And I was just running along, grappling the barrier, running along the whole 300 meters. So I didn't think I could stay away from it. It was bizarre. It was a dangerous. Sometimes you're exposed on like Crib Goch, and sometimes you're exposed on a viaduct of a tiny Welsh village. Yeah, it was interesting. Good experience, good fun.
Amazing. Well, looking forward to seeing how you do, and you know, got to wish you all the best for in a couple of weeks' time, and seeing what you can produce on the day or on the week.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and hopefully put into practice all the things I've learned the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So as far as like people getting in touch with you for like coaching and stuff like that, is there anywhere that you want to sort of direct people?
Yeah, I've got a couple of slots for next year. I've got a website, trailjackcoaching.com. I talk about the training that I like to set, but I also talk about how I look at things, and some people relate to it and some people go on it and see, you know, that's the sort of style I'd like. So you can have a look on there. Obviously Instagram @trailjack, but I will actually be signing off there probably Monday. What day is it today? Saturday. Maybe Tuesday. I'll sign off for a couple of days just before the spine. I don't need any unnecessary noise on there. Yeah, but drop me an email through my website. And also, if anyone's got any issues with gambling or a phase in their life that they're struggling with, I know I'm young, but I can give you an opinion on it, or I can relate to it, I'm sure. So get in touch, and I'd love to help anyone out. Running related or you know, mental health, it's fine.
I'll chuck those links in the show notes then for the podcast, and wish you all the best for the spine race. See you in a few weeks.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the platform to talk, and thanks for getting in touch.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
See you in a bit.
Right.